Rogue Show calling this show again this week from South Carolina. Rogue Show, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey, yo. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fine. I'm a bit tired, but I'll be okay.
Good. Rogue Show, I see you wanted to ask a question here, and it says, can a theist be a skeptic? Is that what you want to talk about?
Yeah. In the sense of... Never mind. Actually, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
I want to define what I mean by skeptic, which is one who analyzes a claim or a proposition, with skepticism or with logic and evidence.
Okay.
That may be too broad a brush.
Well, it's kind of hard to use the word skepticism for the word skeptic too, right? I feel like maybe a separation there would be good. But essentially, I mean, you're asking if a theist can be skeptical, right? Or can be skeptical about something?
No, not skeptic. Not skeptical. Or not skeptical, because the answer would be yes.
Okay.
But a skeptic.
Yeah. The thing is about the word skeptic is like people have tried to what's the word I'm looking for? Make a community around that word, right? There's a lot of YouTubers and stuff that use the word skeptic for themselves of various political inclinations, right? Typically, of course, we associate that with the atheist movement, but oftentimes it can be associated with just plain old agnostics or people who come from, some religious traditions that allow for a more skeptical look at the world. So it's not really a word that I'm a big fan of, just because it's hard to know what people mean when they're using it, right? So can a theist be a skeptic? I mean, I think so. I think it's possible. It would definitely be a non-traditional theist, but like, who's to say that skeptics don't believe in other crazy stuff that would defy scrutiny, right? That doesn't mean that they don't have a right to a particular word. I don't know. I'm not going to be the type to gatekeep here. Even if I personally disagree with like a theist worldview, for example, I can't say that they aren't going to be skeptical or have a skeptic viewpoint about other things. So I don't know. At the end of the day, words are just words, and people just assign meanings to them, and that's all they are. So who cares? That's my take. Brady, what do you think?
Well, can I ask you what would you think might be the conflict between those two terms, like a theist and the skeptic? Because evidently there's some sort of friction there, or else it wouldn't be a question or a topic that's brought up necessarily.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So what do you think might be the that balance there?
Yeah, I'd like to know too.
I think the friction I think of, the friction that is there is why do you hold this claim to a lower standard than any other claim or proposition or something.
Yeah. I think this is, again, where the word skeptic kind of becomes muddled here. Like, okay, like take an example from history, like Martin Luther, okay, famously religious. I would call him a skeptic because he is primarily known for us today, or very popularly known for being skeptical of the Catholic Church, right? He was skeptical of the claims that were being made, and he himself was a religious man, but he definitely posed criticism. He definitely posed scrutiny. So I think that he is a skeptic in one class, in one sense of that word, right? Is he a religious skeptic? In some ways, that's true too, because he is skeptical of the theological assertions of the Catholic Church. So yeah, I think that would qualify him as a skeptic, but he's not an atheist though. That's kind of the difference there, right? So like once again, like the word skeptic, I think can just kind of miscommunicate ideas. I don't think it's super useful. I don't think it's a super unifying word. So it's not one that I particularly care for, but other people can use it. I don't care.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah, because I mean, he protested against it, and that is like a form of skepticism, or I would even call it like a step behind, like beyond skepticism. It was that assessment was made, realized, hey, this ain't up to par. Now I'm going to protest against it.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I think like some people use skeptic because it also, it kind of helps blur the lines between a non-believer and a believer too, you know, because I've even heard that phrase a little bit with like within the Christian or within like religious realms of like kind of close to like being a seeker or somebody who's questioning. I'm skeptic. And so that doesn't, it's still part of that ideology, but it's just like outside of that. So I feel like it's like used by some to kind of blur that line so that they can maybe talk about their beliefs without turning people off by, oh, well, this is just a guy who doesn't believe the same as me. But if I can use this other third word that isn't believer or non-believer, then it may be more, you know, marketable to a more mass audience or something. Just thought.
Yeah, it's true. Rogue Show?
I don't know. It's actually kind of hard for me because I kind of like going down going down semantic rabbit holes personally. And so like, yeah, it might just depend like what do you mean by a skeptic? Because there are people like you mentioned, there are probably YouTubers who label themselves skeptic but are pretty gullible.
Sure. I mean, how many people from the flat earth community, for example, call themselves skeptics, right? I mean, they are skeptical of the model of the earth being round, right? So like, yeah, in one sense of that word, they definitely are. But are they going to be associated with like, I don't know, that intelligentsia, you know, that sort of other sort of attributions that we give to that word? Like, we don't want to give credit to that, right? I mean, I know I don't, right? So that's why, again, it's just a context specific word that really is going to depend on the speaker.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I like that.
I just kind of like I guess I have this friction because it's the same way that atheism is stigmatized, and like theists are like these stupid atheists, they think there is no God.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same way for skepticism, where it's like the word is so misused. The word is pretty much very misused and stigmatized that you just want to defend it. And,
Yeah, I can see that. But listen, you don't owe anybody an explanation for your beliefs, right? You don't owe anybody an explanation for the words that you use to describe yourself, right? Those words are for yours to use. And yeah, there's definitely people that use words in ways that I would find disagreeable, or I would find going against the grain in common definitions. But, you know, the truth of what people mean will always be revealed through the rest of the words and through their actions, right? So, like, yeah, there's going to be some people I find goofy that are going to use that word skeptic. That doesn't mean I feel like, oh, hey, I have to defend this word because this word is supposed to describe my community, and my community is the right community, you know? Like, it doesn't matter to me
Yeah.
at the end of the day, right? When I very seldomly like using the word atheist, to be honest with you, because I do think that there's some associations that are kind of connotated with that. I would rather convey my beliefs to people, or lack thereof, as exactly that. It's like, look, I was a Christian, and now I've deconstructed that faith, and I don't call myself a Christian anymore. And so I live my life without a God belief. I think like being able to put that into a word will be great, but there's no great word for that, as I know, besides, ex-Christian or, former Christian, stuff like that. To me, that's more meaningful as a description than just, atheist doesn't believe in God, because atheists have different experiences in life, right? There's different roads that come to that. Some people have their own deconstruction stories, but it's not always from Christianity. Sometimes it's Islam. Sometimes it's other forms of religion. Or sometimes you just grow up not having a God belief at all. And that might look differently from somebody who did grow up with a God belief. So, point is, just find a word that's comfortable for you. Don't feel the need to, in my opinion, I don't think you have to feel the need to defend the word to anybody. Use it if you like it, if you're comfortable with it, and if not, you can find a different word or make something up. Because why not? Who cares?
I found for myself, like a secular humanist is kind of how I would define myself, because I like to define myself by what I do believe first now, instead of what I don't believe. I used to be like, I'm ex-Christian, and I think each step is valid. I don't want to be like, oh, well, that means you're a little baby, you're playing Power Rangers when the rest of us are, kicking soccer balls. Like, it's not that sort of thing. Like, we're all on our own paths and journeys. And but for me, like, I like to say, hey, yeah, I'm a secular humanist, because it says what I am first, and I'm like a secular humanist with leftist rising. Or like,
Leftist rising.
I'm a secular humanist wing, Trekkie wing. I don't know, like
Trekkie wing.
I don't know, just like that's how I do it now.
Yeah. I'm at a point now where I don't feel like I need to give words or people can use to dismiss me for any real reason, right? I feel that way for personally for like a gender expression, like, yeah, I'm a dude, but like if there's something else that could describe it more accurately, maybe, I don't know, I don't care. Like, I don't feel the need to tie myself to that kind of stuff as much anymore. I think what's more important, again, is just the ability to convey your thoughts and feelings and experiences into something that goes beyond just what's been traditionally defined by those words anyway. Because at the end of the day, that's going to be most important. What?
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. But
yeah.
in this day and age, though, especially with the internet, some of those labels are helpful for us to find communities.
True.
Right?
True.
And so, like, yeah, you may not need that now, but I'm a gay man living in Missouri. I still need to find queer groups. I still need to find like my queer community or my gay friends or things like that. So there are times where like those named communities or those names labels are a good thing,
Absolutely right.
But then when we don't need them, then yeah, it is okay to outgrow them and to leave them behind. But there are still to be some that keep until you're dead,
Yeah.
to help us identify our people.
That's a great counterpoint, actually. And something
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I'm Dan's devil's advocate.
You're this is the atheist community of Austin. This show is produced by that. And like, I sometimes I'm like, man, I wish we could call it the humanist community of Austin. I wish we could use some of these other words, but no, atheist is a word I think that used to comfortably describe people in their experiences. And I don't think that they should be discounted for that. I don't think just because I am not the biggest fan of that word doesn't mean that it's not a word that resonates for other people. Because you're right, like it's there so that other people who identify that way can find community, and that's super, super important. I think that's something that a lot of people who don't feel politically the same way kind of don't understand, right? Because it's like, why are all these words? Why is there LGBTQ plus all these stuff? It's like, yeah, because like, if you're a part of the majority, you never had to find words. You kind of just fit in, right? You kind of just...
That's it, right there.
Yeah, yep. Like you never had to find other ways to express yourself because your expression was already calculated, was already,
It was the normal.
Was the norm. Yeah. So
There's a bit by Pete Holmes where he talks about that, where he's like, because he used to be Christian, and he talked about, well, yeah, there was all different types of Christians. I thought there was like, the Catholics and Lutherans, and then like us, the normals.
yeah, it's true.
Like he's joking, but it's like, God, that really does say something about how we respond to our beliefs, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So I say that because, you see this too, right? Where it's like, oh, why do they have all these words? Why are they coming up with new stuff? It's like, because the human experience is maybe a little bit more complicated than we might give it credit for. And self-discovery is not a bad thing, right? Even if you do change your mind about how you feel about yourself later. So anyway.
How do you identify now, Dan? Are you more of like a Carrie or a Samantha?
Okay. Was it on BoJack Horseman, a Zoe versus what's the other one? I can't remember with the Z word. Anyway, we should ask our caller Rogue Show, because we've been talking a lot of things here. What we've getting a lot of comments.
Are you a
Do
Samantha?
you have any thoughts?
I guess now that you mention it, like using the useful term LGBT people does indeed help find communities. Does indeed help find communities and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So what about I guess that I'd imagine unlike I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. Would skeptic fall under the same type of community label, I guess?
Well,
I don't think it's a sexuality.
Too broad to be.
Okay. No, I think it does. I think it can. I mean, yeah, because like I think some people can wear it as a badge of honor if they're in a community or in a family even that is like hardcore believers, believing anything that they're told or accept it all by faith, etc. I think for them to be able to say, yeah, I'm a skeptic, I think that does kind of take a stand. It's a little bit of a form of protest, and if that's not the norm that they're in or what's expected out of them. And I think that if they go in and they try to find communities of skeptics, they're going to find some assholes that they're not going to click with, but so do I in the areas of like the internet that I've been part of, like in deconstruction spaces or ex-Christian. So no, they're not gonna find like this community that's like ready to open their arms or whatever. But I think that definitely could open up to them to find other people who they relate to and can share their story and be like, yeah, we're on the same page. We've had a similar experience with that,
Yeah. But you just have to be careful, because you'd be like, oh, I'm so happy to be part of this new skeptic group. Be like, yeah, we talk about how climate change totally isn't real. It's like skeptic is just that's the big thing with that word, right? It's just it can be very broadly applied and sometimes applied in ways in which you don't agree with, which is why I personally don't really use the term myself. But as Brady very rightly pointed out, it is a term of empowerment. Whether that's good empowerment, like, finding a community after being part of a oppressive religious group, or maybe not as good empowerment, like, hey, my family doesn't listen to me when I talk about the flat earth, but now these other people in this echo chamber in my Facebook group can, help me work through that. Like, it can kind of cut both ways,
It's a deconstructing word, isn't it? It's more of like a word about taking something apart, but it's not about putting something together. So you can be skeptical about a truthful thing and stay there forever, right? Like, I think that's kind of a good point that you're bringing up as well. Because skeptical doesn't necessarily mean that you're empowered to find any truth. It just means that you're really good at criticizing things that other people are calling true.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like, it's also how you frame. What are you skeptical about, Dan? What are you skeptical about?
What am
in
I
life,
skeptical
just general?
about?
Yeah. What do you think? What are you skeptical about?
Man, I could say a lot of things there. I don't know. The thing is, like, I'm skeptical of hierarchy. I'm skeptical of fascists.
good
I'm
answer.
skeptical of unjust hierarchies in particular, right? I mean, I am skeptical of how we distribute information,
Wealth.
particularly
wealth.
authority on information, right? Like, I'm skeptical of lots of institutions that claim to be in our interest but aren't. But what is there to say with that? I mean, it's again just
It's a really good answer.
Thanks. I think so like in that ways it is appropriate to call myself a skeptic. But do I find community in that? Sure, in some ways. But I also find that I disagree with a lot of folks that I also would call themselves skeptics too, right?
Well,
you do.
you know what's interesting? What is at the heart of your skepticism and the examples you gave has to do with justice and the distribution of power and how power interacts with people within its hierarchy, right? Yeah. But if you look at a flat earther skeptic, really the enemy that they're declaring war on is scientific proof and a round planet.
It
right?
can be.
So I think that might be an interesting approach. It might be an interesting kind of practice to do as well of like, okay, I'm skeptical, but what is it I'm skeptical about and why? Yeah. Like for me, my deconstruction leaving Christianity had so much to do with power distribution, how people are treated, what is real and what isn't, but it all had to do with power and justice, not just, oh, I want to protect this weird information that I read on the internet. Yeah. Yeah. Like there's nothing at stake there that's real. I mean, yeah, they could do like the whole, like, oh, the scholars, they're all against us. They're trying to say this and blah, blah, blah. It's like this big conspiracy from them, but it's like, what's at stake is nothing but your opinion on the situation, not anybody's well-being, not their life, not their ability to make autonomous decisions or to take control. Like, it's just for fun almost.
And that's the problem with recreational skepticism, though, that I find, Brady, because when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? How many times have I seen in my own life people who I call skeptics, people who I know, some who I know quite well, who have amazing takes on some things, and then I hear them talk about a different subject, and they don't know anything.
It's like, what the hell?
Right? It's the Dunning-Kruger effect in action in real time, and I guess that's a danger I have with us thinking that we're just the smartest bunch in the room, and that's how we project ourselves and market ourselves as atheists, but particularly as skeptics, right? Because there's so many things I don't know. It's ridiculous. The greatest way to sound smart on the internet is to just talk about what you know. That's it. If you've ever thought that I was smart about anything, it's just because you've only heard me talk about that particular subject, probably. If you ask me about, I don't know, the history of 1950s French Guiana, I wouldn't be able to tell you much. So I would probably sound like an idiot, but it doesn't matter because, we project ourselves and we talk about the things that we find the most interesting. And that's often what people find most annoying about skeptics, because they want to talk about the things that they can criticize and they feel confident in doing. And it's like, yeah, that's definitely a thing. That's true. But there's also more to life than tearing things down. You got to build things up sometimes too. So
I am the smartest in this room, I do want to say, because it's just me and my two cats, and they are both fucking idiots.
There you go. I believe
there you go. Brady. And the other thing, too, that clicked me is I'm thinking of like Russell Brand, where it's like people who have the gift of gab. Yeah. And they can just keep going and going and talking about bullshit and just kind of like poke a whole bunch of holes in anything, but not really build anything. And like, oh, look over there, don't pay attention to my sexual abuse trials and
Yeah.
anything that Russell Brand is doing. But because he's decent looking and can just keep talking, he's going to get followers. He's going to people who buy into that or buy into the personality. And once we start believing things because of who tells it to us,
Yep.
we're gonzos. We're done. We've lost the way.
100%. Rogue Show, we've been talking for a little bit. What do you think?
Where to start? God. I guess. Sorry.
You don't have to apologize. It's okay.
I guess that's kind of it. Like
Sure.
I have a sort of skeptic, or I have a more rigorous definition of skepticism, and I think it excludes, for me, it excludes, or no, there's no offense to any theists, but it excludes, I think it excludes theism, because I think it excludes theism. However, there are a lot of Christians who are hella smarter than me, and probably a lot more skeptical than me. So,
yeah, I think some of the greatest contributions that humans have ever made, some of them have been from theists, right? I don't think you should have to discount someone's intelligence or ability to be skeptical just based on their God belief, right? So if I could say anything to that, Rogue Show, I would encourage you to maybe expand that pretty exclusive definition of skeptic to folks who can absolutely contribute meaningfully to a skeptical worldview or a skeptical discussion that may have other points of their worldview that leave, more room for interpretation. Because the truth is, that's all of us, right? So,
yeah,
I don't know. That's my thoughts there. Brady, you're gonna.
Well, to blur the lines now. Call me Alan Thicke's son. What is his name? Do you remember that Blurred Lines song?
Oh my God! Wow, that was like what 20.
Sorry, I pulled that. But okay, I just googled skeptic to get a little definition, and I think I see where Rogue is coming from. The first definition, most basic, which is the most basic definition, in my opinion, is my definition. That's where I'm going to go. But a person inclined to question or doubt accepted opinions. Now, here's my question: if by faith you have to accept Christianity to be a Christian by faith, are you able to actually doubt an accepted opinion? Because there are certain opinions within that skepticism that if you do kind of question it, it kind of takes that also Christianity identity away, because it does build on faith. Okay, so what I'm thinking is, Rogue, I see what you're saying. I think it may be, like you said, semantics, right? Like we like to take a word and really hit it as hard as it can. So can they be a full skeptic if they also have an identity that requires faith? In the definition I feel like you're presenting, and that's their view of skeptic, no. But I do get where you're coming from, because like if you are taking the not accepting opinions as part of your identity of saying I am, not just I'm skeptical, but I am a skeptic, that does kind of have some inherent essential values that will brush up against somebody who takes on the full identity of something that requires an accepted opinion, that requires like a piece of faith.
Yeah. Counterpoint to your counterpoint, Brady. hold on.
ahead.
This isn't over yet.
Hold on, sorry.
Because I think this is a tu quoque fallacy. You familiar with this? The idea
A what?
a
Was
tu
that
quoque
French?
fallacy. Yes.
I
Imagine
know most of my fallacies.
if let's say you murder somebody, Brady. And,
don't have to.
And let's say it's objectively true that murder is wrong. For sake of argument, it's objectively true that murder is wrong. You
I
murdered
don't know
somebody.
the person I murdered, though.
If you just let's get there. Let me get there, okay? You murder somebody, and then when I ask you if you think murder is wrong, you say yes, right?
Okay.
Or you may say no. Wait, no, you would say yes. I'm trying to make the example.
Would I?
Well, the point I'm trying to make is just because you're a personal hypocrite, right, doesn't mean that the argument can't be true, right? Doesn't mean that a position can't be true in some ways, right? So I think to wrap this back to our conversation, right, just because a Christian, if they have a theistic worldview that is based on faith, right, isn't necessarily following through with the quote unquote true tenets of skepticism, I don't think that necessarily means that they can't hold that skepticism can be a virtue, right? Doesn't mean that they can't try
Right.
to employ skepticism in a way in which they understand. So
But I think we're talking about somebody who's identifying.
I still feel that way, even with identifying. I feel like because I think once again, we're talking about long swaths of human history where most people have been religious, right? And yeah, some of the most biggest contributors have also been more skeptical of their surroundings, but they may still had God beliefs. They may still had other unexplored thoughts there. It's just, when we try to get our modern understandings of Christianity, right, it may interfere with that. So I don't know. I guess the question at the end of the day is,
May I?
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it, Rogue.
And then let's wrap up the call from here. Go ahead, Roadshow.
Okay. So I think I might have miscommunicated. My definition of skepticism doesn't entail, or it does doubt. It does entail doubt, but once it entails once a proposition is logically sound and it has evidence, then that's when you believe it. Hence, looking over a claim or a proposition with logic and evidence, or someone who's in the mindset of looking at claims as logic and evidence.
Yeah. I think that's a modern application of our understanding of skepticism, right? With the use of the scientific method and everything, right? Talking about claims, talking about evidence, talking about, a testing of a hypothesis and stuff, right?
Magnets, what are they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that even before we have the scientific method as understood today, I would argue there are still people of history that we would call skeptic in that sense, despite not having an exact application of some of the methods that you're describing, right? But I don't know. That's just my take on it. We do need to get going here, though, because we've been on this call for quite a while. But this was a great conversation, Rogue Show. Thank you so much for calling about this topic. You definitely stimulated some neurons. My neurons are firing in my brain right now. And that's all thanks to you. And also Brady. Thank you, Brady, for a stimulating conversation. It's very good.